Are you ready? Let's begin. The theme of this lecture is pharmacology of hormones. To be more precise, I am going to give you some review of general questions of hormonal regulation and then describe the selected groups of hormones, first of all steroid hormones, and taking in consideration some time limitation, maybe I am going to describe some drugs with anti-hormonal activity. As usual, let me begin from determination. Physiological determination. Hormone, from Greek impetus, is a biologically active substance released by a cell, a gland, or an organ in one part of the body that affects cell in other parts of organism. And pharmacological determination. Hormonal drugs are four analogies of biologically active substances produced by endocrine glands or by glands of internal secretion, or it may be the synthetic derivatives. The history of the question. We find in the literature strong evidences that products of animal origin, including hormonal remedies, were widely used in various schools of ancient traditional medicine. Therefore, we can assume that the history of use of hormonal drugs has few hundreds or even a few thousands of years. In the early stages, it was unpurified drugs in simple pharmaceutical forms. This was until the beginning of the 20th century, when the method of chemistry, first of all, method of organic chemistry, biochemistry, preparative chemistry, as well as methods of pharmaceutical technology reach sufficient level of development. This made it possible to solve the task of creation of hormonal drugs of new generation. Next figure. Let me mention on some historical dates. Beginning of 90th years of last century, of 20th century, selection and use of insulin for treatment of diabetes by Canadian physiologist Frederick Banting and Charles Best, and by Scottish physiologist John MacLeod. Middle of the century, 1943-1949, selection and establishment of structure of cortisone by Swiss chemist Tadeusz Rackstein, and use of cortisone in treatment and of rheumatoid arthritis by American physician Philip Hunch. The same dates, middle of the century, getting of thyroxine and a number of glucocorticoids by American biochemist Edward Kendall. At the next stage of development, the great amount of new modern hormonal drugs were created, which you see in classification in one of the next draw. Next part is devoted to general aspects of the physiology and endocrinology of our question. As you maybe know, all hormones are produced in the special organs, so-called endocrine glands, There are a number of endocrine glands in organism. To be precise, they are first thyroid gland, second the parathyroid glands, third thymus, fourth adrenal glands, next the sec glands, endocrine part of the pancreas, hypothalamus and pituitary, and the final epiphysis. The main characteristics of hormones as biologically active substances which distinguish each from hormone-like substances and mediators and cytokines. First, place of synthesis. All hormones are produced only in specific organs, endocrine glands or glands of internal secretion. Second, distant character of action. Hormones are produced in endocrine glands and realized its activity in other parts and organs of organism. Third, significant duration of biological effect. Fourth, high specificity and selectivity of action of hormonal drugs and physiological hormones. And fifth, high level of biological activity. As to our question of hormonal regulation of some functions of organism, all structures in organism are divided in two types. First type of organs, cell, tissues are so-called know the target cells, organs and tissues respectively. They are hormone insensitive. Second time, target cells, organs and tissues respectively. It may be first kind hormone dependent. For example, it is organs of sexual sphere in male and female organism. And secondly, they may be hormone sensitive. For example, it's muscle, tissue and bone for action of sex steroid hormones. And now, pharmacological part of my lecture. General classification of hormones. This classification is based on physiological principles, taking into account the origin and chemical structure of hormonal drugs. All hormones divided in three groups. The first group, so-called peptide hormones, which include hormones of hypothalamus, pituitary gland, parathyroid glands, thymus, pancreatic hormones, and thyrocalcitonin. Second group, hormones derived from aromatic amino acids, for example, from thyroxine and phenylalanine. This group includes such hormonal drugs as adrenaline and thyroid hormones, thyroxine and 3-iod-tyranine respectively. Third group, steroid hormones, including corticosteroids. They are glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. Sex steroid hormones, including androgens, estrogens, and estrogens, and anabolic steroids. Some principle of dose measurement of hormonal drugs administration. As I mentioned below, all hormonal drugs may be remedies of animal origin, as well synthetic drugs exist too. So all drugs of animal origin as a rule are measured in so-called units of action using procedure of biological standardization. In opposite, synthetic drugs are measured traditionally in classical units, in weight or volume units, depending on the applied drug form. In the next part of my lecture, let me concentrate your attention to the problem of pharmacology of glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoid drugs is one of the most popular group of drugs, and this is a wide range of application in clinics. And I begin from classification again. All hormonal drugs of glucocorticoid groups may be divided on few groups. First group, synthetic analogs of hormones, including cortisone, hydrocortisone, or cortisol. Second group, so-called ordinary synthetic derivatives. This group includes some drugs, prednisolone, methylprednisolone, and dexamethasone. Third group, synthetic fluorine containing derivatives, including triamcinolone, sinaflan, flumetazone, and betamethasone. And final group, synthetic chlorine-containing derivatives, for example, beclomethasone. Another classification divides all drugs for specific purpose, and I may divide firstly drugs for systematic pharmacotherapy for use in some branch of medicine as endocrinology, rheumatology, allergology, transplantology, and some others, including drugs cortisol, prednisolone, dexamethasone, and some others. Another group, drugs for inhalation use as a rule in pulmonology, include triamcinolone, beclomethasone, budesonide, flunizolide, fluticasone. Third group, drugs for topical application, as a rule in pharmaceutical form of creams or ointment in dermatology. This group may be divided on drugs with high level activity, for example, betamethasone, drugs with average degree of activity. They are triamcinolone and flumetazone, and remedies with low level activity, hydrocortisone, dexamethasone, and prednisolone. The next part show the simple type of biochemical pathway of synthesis of steroid hormones and hormonal drugs. As you can see, the process begins from cholesterol. Thus, cholesterol is the origin and biologically active substance in this process. Then the process goes as step-by-step process with consequent producing of some intermediate products such as pregnenolone, 17-hydropregnenolone, and some others. And some kinds of pathways exist. First type is type which we register in adrenal glands. It results in forming corticosteroids, glucocorticoids, and mineralocorticoids respectively. This process go passing stage of forming of progesterone, which is proper hormonal active substance. Another kind of step-of-step production of hormonal drugs underlies the formation of dehydroepiandrosterone and androstenedione, substances with low androgenic activity, but final stage of formation underlies production of group of androgens such as testosterone and estrogens such as estradiol, estrone, and estriol. Next figure shows the process in details. Let me note that all steroid hormones contain so-called cyclopentane hydrophenanthrene structure, which contain of 4 rings, 6 carbon, 6 carbon, 6 carbon, and 5 carbon rings respectively. The state of process I have described below. Now I know the differences in process in adrenal glands and sexual glands respectively. I know that all processes need in presence and activity of corresponding enzymes and enzymatic complexes. These complexes marked by green and red color respectively. Green color correspond to enzyme located in endoplasmatic reticulum. Red color correspond to mitochondrial enzymes. And in addition, steroid hormones differ from each other by amount of carbon atoms. So, for example, progesterone is 21 carbon containing hormone. For another compound, it may be another carbons. For estrogen, 18 carbons. For glucocorticoids, 21 carbons, and so on. This draw details the process of synthesis which take place only in adrenal glands. I note on the process in zona fasciculata, which results through some intermediate substances to production of hormones from group of corticosteroids, cortisol, corticosterone, and some others. Some historical questions and aspects. The name glucocorticoid derives from early observation that these hormones were involved in glucose metabolism in fasted state. Cortisol stimulated several processes that collectively serve to increase and maintain normal concentration of glucose in blood. Some step back, and now I show you video presentation which comments molecular biochemistry mechanism of action of steroid hormones. For example, it may be corticosteroids or sex steroid hormones. Steroid hormones are not water soluble. They travel in the blood attached to protein carrier. See it in right side of draw. Process of interaction and binding to carrier, you can see. When steroid hormones arrive at the target cell, they dissociate from their protein carriers and pass through the plasma membrane of the cell. This is because all steroid hormones is substances with higher lipid solubility. The process of penetration to cytoplasm. Some steroid hormones bind to specific receptor proteins in the cytoplasm and then move as a hormone receptor complex into the nucleus. You can see it, this process, formation of complex and penetration to nucleus. Some other steroids travel directly into the nucleus before encountering the receptor proteins. This type not shown in the presentation. The hormone receptor protein, activated by binding to the hormone, is now able to bind to a specific region of the DNA. These DNA regions are known as the hormone response elements. See the next part. They interact, bind, and activate the process of the repression. The binding of the hormone receptor complex has a direct effect on the level of transcription at that site. Messenger RNA, ribonucleic acid, is produced, which often calls for the synthesis of specific proteins. And this is the final stage, synthesis of proteins. This is proteins which realize some specific function of steroid hormone. That's all. And let me continue with my presentation. Next stage, pharmacodynamics of glucocorticoids drug. If you see on the spectrum of pharmacological activity, we may divide so-called metabolic effects and not metabolic effects of glucocorticoids. First, metabolic effects underlies first stimulation of gluconeogenesis, in particular in liver. This partly results in the synthesis of glucose from non-glucose substrates, such as amino acids, and glycerol from triglyceride breakdown. Next, mobilization of amino acids from extrahepatic tissues. This serves as substrate for gluconeogenesis. Third, inhibition of glucose uptake in muscle and adipose tissue, a mechanism to convey glucose. And fourth, stimulation of fat breakdown in adipose tissue. The fatty acids released by lipolysis are used for production of energy in tissues like muscle, and released glycerol provide another substrate for gluconeogenesis. And second, note metabolic effects of glucocorticoids. I know that glucocorticoids function from interaction with the glucocorticoid receptors, which underlies the process, first upregulation, the expression of anti-inflammatory proteins, and connection process of downregulation, the expression of pro-inflammatory proteins. Summary, we can register significant anti-inflammatory effect of glucocorticoids. Also, glucocorticoids shown to play a role in the development and homeostasis of T lymphocytes. And in addition, glucocorticoids play important roles in fetal development and body fluid homeostasis. Some question which is a question of pharmacological spectrum of pharmacological activity of single hormonal drugs, including the group of glucocorticoids. First remedy, cortisol. This drug known more formally as hydrocortisone. It is steroid hormone, more specifically a glucocorticoid, produced by zona fasciculata of adrenal cortex. Cortisol is a hormonal drug usually used in oral administration as well as intravenous injection or topical application. For example, it may be cutaneous application in form of creams or ointment. It's used as an immunosuppressive drug given by injection in treatment of severe allergic reaction in place of prednisolone in patients who need steroid treatment but can't take oral medication. It may be used topically for allergic rash, eczema, psoriasis, and certain other inflammatory skin conditions. In the left part of the draw, you can see some pharmacological form of this drug. Next remedy, prednisolone. This drug is corticosteroid drug with predominant glucocorticoid and low mineralocorticoid activity, making it useful for the treatment of wide range of inflammatory and autoimmune conditions such as asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, pericarditis, temporal arteriitis, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, vasculitis, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, autoimmune hepatitis, and dermatomyositis. And in addition, This drug may be used for treatment of sarcoidosis, though the mechanism, precise mechanism, is unknown in present. At least at present is unknown. And third drug from group of glucocorticoids, triamcinolone. It is a long-action synthetic corticosteroid given orally or by injection or by inhalation or as a topical ointment or cream. Triamcinolone is used to treat several different medical conditions such as eczema, psoriasis, arthritis, allergies, ulcerative colitis, lupus, temporal arteritis, uveitis, ocular inflammation, as well as for prevention of asthma. But I must know, it will not treat an asthma attack once it has already begun. So, triamcinolone is only preventive remedy in this pathological condition. And as well, in the left part of the draw, you can see real pharmaceutical form of this drug. Mostly, these are formed for topical application. The next drawing, you can see data devoted comparative estimation of some kinds of pharmacological activity of glucocorticoids drug. I choose for comparison a number of drugs such as cortisol, prednisolone, methylprednisolone, triamcinolone, and dexamethasone. Its remedies represent different groups as to its chemical structure. Drug of natural origin, ordinary synthetic drugs, and some fluorides containing glucocorticoid remedy. I choose cortisol as a basic original remedy. So this standard show level of activity equal 1 relative unit, because it is the drug of comparison. All another drugs show another data, parameters. To be more precise, prednisolone, methylprednisolone, and triamcinolone show average level of glucocorticoid activity and anti-inflammatory activity. Prednisolone and methylprednisolone show level of mineralocorticoid activity compared with activity of cortisol. Two drugs, triamcinolone and dexamethasone, can't show any mineralocorticoid activity. But in opposite, dexamethasone demonstrates very strong glucocorticoid activity and anti-inflammatory activity. As a sequence, some indication, main indication for use of glucocorticoid drugs, they are first, hormonal substitution treatment at conditions of adrenal insufficiency. It may be acute or chronic process. Second, different kinds of therapeutic immunosuppression. It may be suitable in transplantology, allergology, for example. The next indication is traditional. It is inflammation and use of glucocorticoids as drugs with strong anti-inflammatory activity. Fourth, allergic and autoimmune disorders. Fifth and sixth, more rare types of use. Decompensated heart failure and hyperaldosteronism. Some information from range of schemes of pharmacotherapy using glucocorticoids administration, information about regimens. Some types of administration exist, consequently they are: first type, so-called short-term therapy. In this case, glucocorticoids is injected in emergency situation, often in range of highest doses. And next, another type or types. Second type, prolonged therapy, which may be divided on some subtypes. A continuous scheme, taking into account the physiological circadian rhythm of glucocorticoid secretion. 2/3 of daily dose of drug is injected in the morning, and 1/3 of the daily dose in the afternoon. Type B, various scheme, underlies that twice the maintenance dose of the drug is injected in morning, once in 2 days. Type C, so-called intermittent scheme, underlies that the drug is injected by short courses lasting 3 or 4 days, with 4 days intervals between them, with the next repeating of this scheme. And type D, pulse therapy. In this case, drug is injected in so-called mega doses, which can reach 1 gram. It is very high dose for glucocorticoid drug, and the interval between injections in this case is very long, from 3 weeks up to few months. Side effects of glucocorticoids. As you can see, these drugs are numerous side effects. This fact in many cases limited application of glucocorticoid drugs in clinics. They are delay of sodium and water, stimulation of excretion of potassium, osteoporosis, myopathy, the defeat of cardiovascular system, steroid stomach ulcer, steroid diabetes, activation of infectious agents, change in mass of the body, of two types, resulting in increased body weight as well as weight loss. The next, violations in the psychic sphere, Cushing's syndrome development, suppression of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, development of hirsutism, disorders of the eyes, the blood coagulability, and last 2 points is points for topical application of glucocorticoids. For example, in dermatology, it may cause first candidosis of the pharynx and larynx. Is types for inherited form in field of pulmonology. It's my mistake. And second, damage to the epithelium of respiratory tract. And you can see the name of drugs which responsible for development of such side effects in most cases. The next drawing contraindications contains some points. First, diabetes mellitus. Note that contraindications correspond to some side effects. Second, peptic ulcer. Third, mental disorders in history. Next, tuberculosis, hypertension, heart insufficiency, fungal and viral infections, and hypersensitivity. And I note that all these contraindications are character of relative contraindications. And the final stage of our lecture is devoted to question of anti-hormonal regulation, as well as drugs with hormonal activity created and used in clinical practice, anti-hormones created and used in clinic practice too. And you can see determination of anti-hormones. It is pharmacological group or group of pharmacological agents which block the synthesis, excretion and activation of hormones, or violate the hypothalamic pituitary regulation of endocrine glands functions, or blocking hormone receptors. So, as you can see in determination, 3 different mechanisms of action of anti-hormonal remedies exist, theoretically. But I am going to concentrate your attention on the steroid antihormones or antagonist of steroid receptors. And note on existence of 5 groups of these drugs. First, anti-estrogens and representatives of this group drugs, clomiphene and tamoxifen. Anti-gestagens, for example, mifepristone. Anti-androgens, including cyproterone acetate, flutamide, and finasteride. Fourth group, anti-mineralocorticoids such as spironolactone. You may remember this drug as diuretic. Fifth, final group, anti-glucocorticoids, for example, glutathione. Such drugs mainly are the remedies of experimental pharmacology. But drugs of first 3 groups are widely used in clinical practice. And I choose some few drugs for pharmacological description. First remedy is clomiphene, trademarked as clomid and amifene. This drug is a selective estrogen receptor modulator that increases production of gonadotropins by inhibiting negative feedback mechanism. It may be used in the form of its citrate to induce ovulation. It is used mainly in female infertility, in turn mainly as ovulation induction to reverse oligoovulation or anovulation. In other cases, it is may be used for ovarian hyperstimulation, such as part of an in vitro fertilization procedure. So, this marks anti-estrogen activity. This some elements of pro-estrogen stimulation. So we can say that clomiphene is properties of estrogen receptor modulator. Next drug, tamoxifen, is an antagonist of the estrogen receptor in breast tissue. It acts via its active metabolite, hydroxytamoxifen. In other tissues such as endometrium, it may behave as agonist of estrogen receptor. Tamoxifen is the usual endocrine anti-estrogen. It has the property of aromatase inhibitor. Some breast cancer cells require estrogen to grow. In this case, estrogen binds to and activates the estrogen receptor in these cells. In this situation, tamoxifen is metabolized into compounds and also bind to the estrogen receptor, but do not activate it. Because of this competitive antagonism, tamoxifen prevents estrogen from binding to its receptor. Hence, breast cancer cell growth is blocked. Thus, oncology is the main sphere of application of this drug. In other words, tamoxifen is one of the drugs for treatment of breast cancer. Mifepristone is a synthetic steroid compound used as a pharmaceutical. It is a progesterone receptor antagonist used as abortifacient in the first months of pregnancy. Another type of application in smaller doses, it may be used as an emergency contraceptive. Another kind of activity, mifepristone is also a powerful glucocorticoid receptor antagonist and has occasionally been used in refractory Cushing's syndrome. And in final, two drugs with anti-androgen activity. First, cyproterone acetate. Sold under brand names such as Andracur and Ciprostat. This drug is a synthetic steroidal anti-androgen drug with additional progesterone and anti-gonadotropic properties. Its primary action is to suppress the activity of the androgen hormones such as testosterone and its more potent metabolite, dehydrotestosterone, or to be more precisely, 5-alpha dehydrotestosterone in the body. The main therapeutic indication of cyproterone acetate are prostate cancer, benign prostatic hyperplasia, hypersexuality, and some others. In addition, it can also be used to treat acne and hirsutism in females' organism. And is a common component in hormone therapy for male to female transsexuals. And finasteride have brand names Proscar and Propecia, produced by famous pharmaceutical companies such as Merck, Sharp and Dohme, and some others. It is a synthetic drug. As to mechanism of action, finasteride is inhibitor of key enzyme of androgen formation. The name of this enzyme is 5-alpha reductase. So, finasteride is inhibitor of type 2 of this enzyme. As to application, finasteride is a drug for the treatment of benign prostatic hyperplasia, and second, for treatment of male pattern baldness. The final for our lecture, let me make some conclusion. Finally, first, a group of hormonal remedies divide into private pharmacological subgroups and contains a considerable number of individual drugs. Hormonal drugs exert their effects by means of different mechanisms of actions. Mostly in all cases they are receptor-mediated mechanism. Third, activity of hormonal drugs manifested in both their impact on the metabolic processes as well as the regulation of a number of other important functions of organism and single organs. And fourth and the final, in the arsenal of pharmacologists, in addition to hormonal means, there are drugs with anti-hormonal activity which have their own indication in clinical practice. That's all. Thank you for attention.